The church is silent, except for the echo of my sister's heels clicking against the marble floor. I can feel every heartbeat in the room, hundreds of eyes darting between her and the man standing rigid at her side. My father, Mark Henderson. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. I need your help to run this journey, thank you. He's supposed to walk her down the aisle, but his hand has frozen on her arm. His jaw tightens, nostrils flare, and he mutters something sharp enough to make her flinch. The whispers start rippling through the pews. I'm at the back, half hidden behind a column, close enough to see the veins in his neck. Then the wedding coordinator rushes forward, whispering frantically. I already know what she's telling him. She's saying that the anonymous benefactor who paid for everything, the flowers, the band, the champagne, was me. Dad's eyes find mine across the aisle. For the first time in my life, he doesn't have words, just that stunned, choking disbelief. That's when I know my revenge has landed. Dad refused to walk me down the aisle until he saw who paid for the wedding. That line would sound dramatic to anyone else, but to me it's not drama, it's symmetry. Justice finally wearing a tux. The guests are frozen. My sister's groom looks lost, his mother gripping her pearls. Dad's face turns the color of a rusted stop sign. Then without a word, he drops my sister's hand and steps aside. The entire church gasps. Kelly spins toward him. Dad, what are you doing? He just stares past her at me. I don't smile, I don't move. I simply hold his gaze until he looks away first. Then, calm as ever, I walk out into the sunlight. My name's Thompson Henderson, 32, born into a family that treated love like currency. Dad was a contractor turned small-town celebrity after a few lucky housing projects. Mom was the quiet gravity that held us together, until cancer took her, and Dad started needing a villain to blame. That villain was me. I wasn't loud or charming or golden like my sister Kelly. I was just the kid who fixed the sink when it broke and showed up when asked. But after Mom's funeral, Dad looked me straight in the eye and said, if you'd visited more, maybe she'd still be here. That line carved something permanent into me. I moved out that week, taking nothing but a duffel bag and a promise I'd never beg for his approval again. 3 years later, Kelly got engaged to a man named Ryan. Dad threw a massive engagement dinner at his country club. I was invited out of obligation. The first toast came from him. He lifted his glass, beaming at Kelly. To my pride and joy, he said, you've always made me proud. And don't worry, kiddo, your old man's paying for every last detail of this wedding. Then he glanced at me, that smug half-smile curling his lips. Unless your brother plans to chip in, which I doubt, given his, situation. Laughter scattered around the table like broken glass. I just swallowed hard, my fork tightening in my hand. My situation's fine, Dad, I said quietly. He leaned back. Sure it is, son. You've got that freelance thing going, right? Kelly tried to defuse it. Dad, stop. But he didn't. He never did. That night I drove home in silence, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. The humiliation burned, but beneath it, a calm thought took root. Fine, you want to pay for everything. Let's see how that goes. I started small. Ryan's parents owned a chain of garden centers, good, kind people. I offered to help them with a promotional video, no charge. It was my actual profession, freelance production work, and I was good at it. They loved the result. We stayed in touch. Over months we became friends. They thought I was humble, hardworking, nothing like how my father described me. When the wedding planning started, they confided that they wanted to contribute financially but didn't want to offend Mark's ego. That's when I saw my opening. I know a way, I said. Let me handle the payments quietly. You can reimburse me later if you really want. They agreed. I never took their money. Every vendor, every deposit, every flower, funded by me. I wasn't trying to humiliate my family. I just wanted the truth to stand somewhere visible someday. Planning a wedding means 1,000 transactions. I knew because I made sure everyone passed through me. Venue paid. Florist paid. Dress alteration paid. All routed through a small LLC I'd opened years ago for production work. Nothing traceable to my name unless you dug. Dad bragged endlessly about writing checks. I let him. The vendors smiled politely while cashing mine. Each time he barked orders at them, I imagined the receipts stacked quietly under my signature. Control had always been his weapon. This time, control belonged to me. 2 months before the wedding, Kelly called. Her voice trembled the way it always did when she was caught between us. "Tom, I wish you and Dad got along," she said. "He just wants to feel included." I nearly laughed. Included. He never included me in anything that didn't make him look generous. Still, I softened my tone. "I'll stay out of his way, promise." She sighed. "Thanks, and thank you for the video thing you did for Ryan's parents. They won't stop talking about how talented you are." That was the first compliment from anyone in my family in years. It hit deeper than I expected. The envelope arrived a week later, thick ivory paper, gold trim. My name was printed alone, Mr. Thompson Henderson, no +1. Classic dad move. He never forgiven me for breaking up with my ex, someone he thought looked right beside me. I almost declined, but then I pictured his face when he finally discovered who'd really funded his masterpiece wedding. I RSVP'd with pleasure. That night I opened a spreadsheet on my laptop, listing every vendor and payment trail, not to expose him, just to keep score. Justice, after all, is an accounting of its own. The photographer Leela was young, sharp, and struggling. She reminded me of me 10 years earlier. During a site visit, she mentioned how intimidating my father was, how he'd lectured her about capturing status, not candids. I told her quietly, ignore him, capture truth instead. She smiled like she'd just been given permission to breathe. Weeks later, she texted me a preview shot. Kelly laughing, unguarded, hair caught by the wind. No poses, no pretense. It was perfect. I wired her double her rate and said nothing to anyone. Ryan cornered me after the rehearsal dinner, nervous and apologetic. "Thompson," he whispered, "my parents told me everything, that you covered the deposits. Is that true?" I nodded once. He looked torn between gratitude and panic. "Man, if your dad finds out." "He will," I said, "eventually, and when he does, let him think about what pride cost him." Ryan stared, processing. "You're not doing this to hurt Kelly." "Right. Never her," I said, just balancing the scales. He exhaled. "You know, she'd be proud if she knew." Maybe, but pride wasn't what I was after. I wanted peace. And peace, sometimes, needs a stage before it can speak. The first invoice went out for the floral arrangements. I wrote the check under an LLC I'd recently registered, TH Productions Consulting. It looked corporate enough to blend in. Dad bragged at dinner that the florist gave him a discount because of his reputation. I sat across the table, eating my steak, letting him talk. Every time he said I paid for that, the irony sharpened inside me like a hidden blade. I didn't want revenge for revenge's sake. I wanted him to trip over his own arrogance. Ryan, Kelly's fiancé, found out first. He called one night, voice nervous. "Your dad told the planner you'd been cut off for years, but she said you were the one who confirmed the deposit. What's going on?" I hesitated, then told him the truth. I was covering the costs quietly because I wanted Kelly to have the wedding she deserved. He was quiet for a long moment. "Does she know?" "No." He exhaled, "Then neither will I." That's when I realized Ryan wasn't like my father. He was decent, and for the first time, someone in the family circle saw through the performance. When the engagement party rolled around, Dad worked the room like a politician. He told everyone how he'd spared no expense for his princess. I just watched, glass of soda in hand, listening to him take credit for things I'd paid for. Halfway through the night, he cornered me near the buffet. "You could learn a thing or two from Ryan," he said, his breath heavy with bourbon. "Like what?" I asked. "Like how to be a real man, providing for a family, taking responsibility." I smiled lightly. "You're right, responsibility matters." He laughed, thinking he'd won. He had no idea what was coming. A few weeks later, Kelly came by my apartment, cheeks red from crying. "Dad's driving me crazy," she said. "He's turning the wedding into his show. Every time I ask for something simple, he says, 'I'm paying, I decide.'" I wanted to tell her everything right then, that he wasn't paying for anything, that she didn't owe him her obedience. But I didn't, not yet. Instead, I just said, "Then let him think he's in control. Sometimes people need the illusion more than the power." She frowned. "You sound like Mom." that strung in a way I didn't expect. Dad's ego reached its peak when he announced he'd personally book the live band. He told the coordinator to cancel my anonymous contract. But when he called the band, they told him the full payment had already been cleared, and that cancelling would mean losing half the deposit. He stormed into Kelly's group chat, furious, demanding to know who authorized it. I watched the messages light up my phone. Kelly was apologizing, Ryan was confused, and Dad was threatening to pull the plug on the whole thing. That night, Ryan sent me a text, "You sure about this?" I replied, "Trust me, he'll expose himself before I ever have to say a word." Dad's temper started leaking through the polished exterior. He'd call vendors and find that decisions had already been made. Every time the answer was the same: "The payments are settled, sir." He hated that phrase. At Sunday dinner he snapped, "I'm starting to think people around here are conspiring behind my back." Kelly looked small. "Dad, it's just planning details." He slammed his fork down. "Don't tell me how to run my house." I kept eating quietly. The silverware clatter filled the silence until he finally muttered, "You always sit there saying nothing, just like your mother." For once, that didn't hurt. It sounded like an admission of fear. 2 months before the wedding, the venue coordinator called me. "Mr. Henderson wants to tour the ballroom. Do you want me to tell him about the sponsorship agreement?" I hesitated. "No, not yet, just show him the space." Later that afternoon, I parked across the street and watched from my car as Dad strutted through the doors with Kelly. He pointed at the chandeliers, pretending to approve his purchase. When he reached for his checkbook at the office counter, the manager politely said, "Already taken care of, sir, by your corporate partner." His face turned pale. I saw his mouth tighten before he stormed out. He never saw me sitting there, smiling faintly behind the windshield. That night, he showed up at my apartment unannounced. "You think you're clever," he barked, stepping inside without asking. I kept my voice level, always have been. "Don't you toy with me, boy. Are you the one paying for this?" I looked him in the eye. "What if I am?" His hand twitched, not into violence but restraint. He wanted to lash out, verbally, physically, but something stopped him. Finally, he hissed, "You're doing this to embarrass me." "No," I said, "I'm doing this so Kelly doesn't have to choose between us." He left without another word. The slam of the door felt like thunder, but underneath it I sensed something new. He was scared of losing control. A week later, I visited Mom's grave for the first time in months. The grass had grown thick around the stone. I brushed it clean and placed a single white rose. "I think you laugh at how this turned out," I said softly. "You always said Dad's pride would trip him someday." The breeze felt warm against my face, like she was answering. I promised her I wouldn't humiliate him publicly. Justice didn't need to be loud, it just had to be honest. That's when the final piece of my plan formed. I'd let Dad reveal everything himself, in front of the very people he lived to impress. Kelly showed up late one night, rain dripping from her coat. She stood in my doorway, eyes red. "I know it's you," she said quietly. I froze. "Ryan told you." She nodded. "He said you've been paying for everything. Why would you do that?" "Because you deserve peace," I said. She bit her lip. "Dad's been unbearable. He said if you show up to the wedding, he won't walk me down the aisle." I felt the old ache return, but this time I didn't bend. "Then he won't," I said, "and someday he'll realize what that cost him." She hugged me before leaving. "You're a better man than he'll ever be." When the door closed, I knew the endgame had already started. 2 weeks before the wedding, small-town gossip did what it always does, spread faster than truth. Vendors began mentioning the mysterious sponsor. Someone leaked that the person funding the event was Mark Henderson after all. Dad heard about it at the barbershop. He called Kelly immediately, demanding answers. She deflected. I could tell she was trying to protect me, but he wasn't buying it. That evening, he posted a long Facebook rant about ungrateful family members and attention seekers. He never named me, but everyone knew. Comments poured in: sympathy, confusion, a few laughs. I didn't reply. Silence is its own kind of power. The rehearsal dinner was my quiet battlefield. The room shimmered with candlelight, laughter, and the sound of silverware clinking on plates. I sat at the far end of the table, next to Ryan's parents. Dad dominated the head seat, boasting as usual. "When you pay for something this big, you want it perfect," he said. Ryan's father smiled politely. "Well, we all have Thompson to thank for making things run smoothly." The silence after that line could have frozen glass. Dad turned slowly toward me. "What did he say?" I met his gaze and said evenly, "He's right, you wanted perfect, I made sure it happened." He didn't explode, not yet, just clenched his jaw and poured another drink. The next day, he showed up at the venue during the setup and lost control. He cornered the event manager, yelling that there'd been a mistake, that his name should be on all the contracts. The manager calmly showed him the receipts. Every payment came from TH Productions Consulting. Dad's voice cracked. "That's my son's company, he's sabotaging me." Guests setting up decorations turned to watch. Even the band stopped tuning. I walked in just as he shouted, "He's nothing without me." I stood in the doorway and said quietly, "You made sure of that for years. Now you get to see how wrong you were." He stormed past me, muttering curses under his breath, but the damage was done. The whispers began before the doors even closed. That night, Kelly called me. "He says he won't come tomorrow, says I've betrayed him." I sighed. "Do you want him there?" Her silence told me everything. "I want peace," she said finally, "but not at the cost of pretending anymore." I felt pride and sadness twist together. "Then stand on your own 2 feet, Kel. You don't need him to walk you anywhere." She sniffed. "And you, will you even show up?" "Yes," I said, "but I'm not coming to fight, just to finish this." The morning of the wedding, the sky looked too calm, like it was holding its breath. Guests filled the pews, the organ hummed softly, and Kelly stood radiant in her dress. Dad arrived late, expression stone cold. He avoided my eyes completely, moving stiffly to her side. I stood near the back, unseen, heart hammering like a drum. When the ceremony began and they started walking, I saw it, the hesitation in his stride, the flicker of doubt crossing his face. Because the whispers had reached him too, the truth was out. By the time they reached halfway down the aisle, the officiant looked confused, the crowd murmuring. He stopped walking. The final act had begun. Halfway down the aisle, Dad froze. Kelly tugged lightly on his arm, whispering, "Dad, please." He didn't move. He was staring past the rows of guests, straight at the coordinator who just whispered something in his ear, exactly what I'd arranged. "She said the sponsor wants to be acknowledged," Kelly murmured. He looked over her shoulder and found me standing at the back, calm, hands clasped. The room went still. He whispered through his teeth, "You." I didn't answer, just a small nod. The officiant cleared his throat, unsure what to do. Ryan stepped forward, confusion turning to realization. "Wait, Thompson, you're the sponsor." The coordinator nodded. Every invoice, every deposit, all covered by Mr. Henderson, Jr. A ripple of gasps. Dad's lips parted, but nothing came out. The color drained from his face. I could see his mind breaking through the numbers, every boast he'd made echoing back like a slap. Kelly whispered, "You lied to everyone." He tried to speak, but the only sound was the organ player stopping mid-note. The guests started murmuring, some even filming on their phones. Dad turned to me. "Why would you do this to me?" I answered quietly, "I didn't do anything to you. I just stopped letting you own everything good in this family." He took one shaky step toward me, but Kelly caught his arm. "Don't make it worse." That broke him. The pride that had armored him for decades cracked all at once. He muttered, "All I ever wanted was respect." I looked at him steadily. "You confused respect with control." Then I walked past him, out through the doors, sunlight blinding but warm. The reception went on without me. Ryan's parents later told me Kelly danced barefoot, laughing for the first time in months. Dad never returned to the ballroom. A few days later, an envelope arrived at my apartment, a check for the wedding expenses. No note, no apology. I mailed it back, voided, with 3 words on a sticky note. It was never about money. He didn't reply. The silence that followed was heavier than any argument we'd ever had, but cleaner too. Months passed, I bought a small place by the coast, nothing fancy, just quiet. Sometimes I walk along the pier at sunset, and I think about that day. I remember the way he stopped in the middle of the aisle, how the truth made him freeze. And I realize it wasn't revenge that satisfied me, it was release. I didn't need him to walk me down any aisle. I just needed to stop walking toward people who never saw my worth. The sea breeze stings my eyes, or maybe it's just peace finally settling in. Either way, I keep walking, alone, free. Please do well to drop your comment below. Thank you.